when you're writing literature, then you are in complete control of what you're doing, and you're a one-man show, and nobody tells you what to do, and you're sitting in your little attic. Not that anybody has an attic, but something like that. And you could be there for 5 years just typing away, and then you show it to your editor, and then the editor has comments, or she or he doesn't, and that's it. And writing for TV is a joint production. It's not all up to you. You have an editor, you have a director, you have the creator in this case, and then you have the producer who says, too expensive, take that scene out. Or, this is no good, this is not good, this is going to cost us another day of filming. And above that, you have the broadcaster, and they have their say, and they don't want this and they don't want that, and if we're showing it on this and that hour, then this cannot be said, and this can be said, and this is not appropriate, and this is appropriate. It was on cable, so it didn't matter. And of course, you have the actors and the actresses who have their own opinion, and they can say, I can't say that. I want to say this. I want to say that. And in the United States, everything is very organized. And you have a writer's room. And if any changes are to be made, you call up the writer's room at any hour, and you say, can we change the word good to nice? In Israel, it's chaos. And sometimes as a writer, you end up watching something that you didn't write. And being a writer with your writer ego, you usually hate what's been done to your baby. And there was a lot of clashes around this or that. I mean, I think the product that came out was excellent, but sometimes it just wasn't mine. And it was very difficult to watch lines which I hadn't written. Or I would tell the creator who would make a suggestion, why doesn't she say this? And I would say, because I hate it. And she's not going to say it. And when I watched it, there it was, the line that I hated. And I was like, ah! But it was, so there's less control over what you do when you're writing to screen. On the other hand, it's fun. It's not as lonely as being a writer, a fiction writer. I mean, I love the loneliness, but this is also like you meet, you have coffee, you scream, you argue, and I remember Asi Dayan, the one who plays the therapist, and some of you may be familiar with the name. He's a very famous Israeli actor and director and the son of Moshe Dayan, and quite an outrageous, temperamental character. And he walked into a meeting with writers one day just to say what he thought of the first drafts of the first week. And we were all sitting there, and he stormed him, and he said, you're horrible writers, and I hate everything you did, and I don't know why you were hired. And that was it. We never heard from him again until it was on. So he was wrong.
It's quite a story. Quite a story.
Do you have a similar experience with when Nietzsche wept?
Well, when Nietzsche wept was, I don't know if any of you have seen the movie. It's out on Netflix and cable. It never got distributed in this country. It was a sort of small budget movie. They had a very good leading character named Armando Asante, and they had he was Nietzsche, and a secondary character was a pretty good actor named Ben Cross. They didn't have enough money really for any of the other roles, and a lot of them are not very good actors. I saw the script 15 times. The director, writer of that movie loved the novel, and what he did was try to put the book right on the screen. Hardly a word was changed, and for that reason it was not a highly successful movie. And I kept trying to change things, and I send them back, and they really weren't changed. So I really couldn't influence that very much at all. But I think if the writer tries to put the book onto the screen, it's going to be a failure. It's got to be adapted. I have another book called Lying on the Couch, a novel that's being put on the screen now, and this is handled very differently. It's by a Hollywood insider, good screenwriter. He's written movies like Ocean's 11, and he's written a lot of good movies. And so he showed me the script after he first drafts, wanted to know if I had any thoughts, but didn't listen to anything I said. I found the draft, was this my book? Exactly, and it's very vulgar, I thought, and I felt a little embarrassed by that. They changed the name, it's called Shoot the Messenger, which has nothing to do with the novel, but I don't have any voice at all in what happened. I think it will be made, though. I know they've got Anthony Hopkins and some other good actors signed up for it. So that's my major experience with that. With writing, yeah, you're totally your own master. But when I first tried to write outside of textbooks, then I had a major jump. You do have an editor, and I wrote that book of Love's Executioner. I wrote 10 stories. They flowed very quickly. Marilyn, my wife, and I traveled around the world. I was a year sabbatical and had 3 months in Bali, and one story just flowed from another. I wrote it very easily, and my original intention was I was going to write these 10 nice stories about psychotherapy, pretty faithful to what happened, and then I was going to write a very, very long afterward. I envisioned I did, 60 pages I wrote, saying what I was really trying to say in the stories. And then I was assigned basic books. I was assigned an editor from hell, who, in many ways was an editor from heaven because she really taught me a lot. But her vision was, no, if I'm going to tell you anything in the story, if I'm going to teach anything, you've got to let the story do the telling. And so we battled almost as long as it took me to write the book, to write the introduction, from 60 pages down to 10. But there were 10 good pages, and I learned how to really teach through the story itself. So that was the first real lesson for me. And the same thing, of course, in writing a novel. I have certain ideas that I start a novel, I'm going to try to teach a certain kind of intention. When I wrote my first novel, When Nietzsche Wept, I thought it would be interesting to teach psychotherapy to young students of psychotherapy by transporting them back to the time of Freud. And they could actually witness how the first psychotherapy was put together, how it was invented. It's like teaching a mechanic to work on a car by having him go to the factory and see how it's made. That was the idea I had in mind. So that was one of the things I had in mind. And I had a few other ideas about what would psychotherapy be like if it was invented by a philosopher and not by a physician scientist like Freud? If it had been invented by Nietzsche, what would psychotherapy look like? So I wanted to do that. I wanted to show in this book how a lot that Nietzsche wrote is very relevant to psychotherapy. So I had all these ideas in mind, and the book, in a sense, that's what I wanted to accomplish through this book. And then once I started writing the novel, then, as all writers will tell you, it takes off on its own. It goes in directions you could never possibly have imagined. I know some people will write, certainly mystery writers, outline the whole novel in advance, but I've never been able to do that. I write the first chapter and I really don't know what's going to happen. You just sort of listen to what the characters are saying to one another and write it down.